This is Wizard Grandpa's Stories. Hello. How nice to see you. Welcome to Wizard Grandpa's Stories. Now, today I'd like to tell you the story of Tommy the Tailor. Now, a long time ago, there was a tailor. He worked very hard in his tailor shop, sewing, making clothes for people, anything they wanted. But sometimes he got a little bit fed up and longed for a life of adventure. Anyway, on this particular day, he was sitting in his shop, and the day was hot, and he just had lunch, and there were flies all over his shop. Oh, it was very unpleasant. And suddenly he felt something tickling on his leg. And before he could look or think, he slapped his leg as hard as he could and looked down. He'd killed many flies who'd been running around on his leg. He looked and he counted. 50 flies. He'd killed 50 flies with one blow of his hand. Well, that sounded like an achievement to him. So he took a brand new belt and he stitched into the belt the following words: 50 at one blow. All down this side, all down that side, and all around the back. 50 at one blow. He didn't say 50 flies, it just said 50 at one blow. Well, Tommy the Tailor thought this was a great achievement. In fact, he thought it was so great an achievement, he was obviously too great to be a tailor. So he shut up his shop and went strolling down the street with his belt clearly visible to everyone. People looked at him as he walked by. 50 at one blow. 50 at one blow. He was certainly making an impression. He ran back to his shop, closed it up completely, took his horse from the stable, and rode off to find adventure. He came to the next town, and there he saw a sign in the village square, and it said, "This kingdom has been troubled by 2 giants. If anyone can kill those giants, they will receive £10,000 in reward and the hand of the king's daughter." Well, thought Tommy the Tailor, I can kill 50 flies in one blow. 2 giants shouldn't be much of a problem. So he went to the palace, and the servant said, "Yes, sir, can I help you?" "I've come to see the king about ridding him of these giants." "Yes, sir, please come this way." The servant showed him into the king. The king was sitting with his daughter, the princess, and she was very beautiful. And the king said to Tommy the Tailor, who was a small man and didn't look very strong, "What can I do for you, young man?" "Ah, your majesty, I saw the sign inviting people to come and kill 2 giants, and the reward would be a lot of money and the hand of your daughter. Am I correct?" "Yes," said the king, "but I ought to tell you that 7 people have already tried this week and not come back from trying to kill the 2 giants. What makes you think you stand a chance?" Tommy the Tailor stood up straight. He still wasn't very tall, but he stood up as straight as he could, made his belt visible, and said to the king, "You see, I have killed 50 in one stroke. "Oh," said the king, "that's impressive." "Servant!" He called for the servant once more. "Take this man and show him where the giants are. Don't let him back until he brings their heads with him." "Thank you, your majesty," said Tommy the tailor, and he set off with the servant to find the giants. Now, Tommy, being a tailor, didn't have much in the way of weaponry or armour, but he did have one rusty sword which had been in his family for a very long time. So he took that with him, and the servant took him down the road and pointed up into the hills and said, "Just keep going up here. You can't miss the giants, and they can't miss you." "Very well," said Tommy. "Expect me back very soon." And he marched proudly up the hill. As he walked, he began to think maybe this wasn't such a good idea. But having gone so far, he couldn't change his mind now. So he crept quietly up the country road until he heard a noise. He heard a kind of banging, thumping noise, and he crept quietly and looked down and saw in a valley below 2 great giants, and each was making a pile of stones. "Well," thought Tommy, "they are rather big, but I suppose they are giants." And he looked and thought and thought and looked and came up with an idea. He looked around on the ground and found some stones. He picked up several very sharp stones, and he crept up behind the giants. He took one stone and threw it as hard as he could at the back of the head of one of the giants. Roar! The creature burst out, roaring with anger. "Ah!" He turned round to the other giant and said, "Why did you do that?" "What?" said the other giant. "I didn't do anything." "You whacked me on the back of the head. Don't do that again." They carried on, piling up their stones, and Jack took another sharp, hard stone and threw it at the back of the head of the second giant. "Ow!" he roared in pain, turned round to the other giant and said, "Why did you do that?" "Do what?" said the first giant. "You whacked me on the back of the head." "No, I didn't. You're dreaming." "You whacked me on the back of the head. If you do that again, I will thrash you." The giants carried on stacking up stones. Tommy took one more stone, threw it at the first giant, hit him on the back of the head. Ooh, he let out such a roar. "Right, that's it," he said, and he leapt on the other giant. And they fought, and they bashed, and they banged, and they thumped, and they were about the same size as each other, so each was the same strength as each other, and the battle went on and on and on for about 3 hours. And then the 2 of them collapsed onto the ground. "Oh," said the first one, "I'm so weak, a baby could push me over." And the second giant said, "Oh, I'm so tired, a fly could push me over." Tommy leapt out. "That's what I was waiting to hear," he said. He took his rusty sword and chopped off the heads of both giants, grabbed them by the hair, threw them over his shoulders, and marched back into town. He walked up to the king's palace, knocked on the door. The servant opened the door and was astonished to see Tommy the tailor with 2 heads over his shoulders. The king was called, the princess was called. Tommy was the hero of the day, and he was married to the princess and given thousands of pounds. And he had a wonderful life. He was the hero of the realm. That is, until something else happened. A rumor came to the king that there was a rebellion. An army had gathered, and they were protesting against the king and his reign, and they were coming to attack the palace. The king took Tommy the tailor on one side and said, "Tommy, my son, you are very good at fighting giants. I wonder if you could go now and lead my army to fight the rebellion." Army, sir? I've never actually been in an army or a war or done any soldiering. I killed giants, it's true, but I don't consider myself a soldier. The king said, "You are my son-in-law, and you are the future king, so you must lead the army." So the head of the army came, took Tommy by the hand and pulled him down to the courtyard where the army was waiting to be led into battle. "I have here the perfect horse for you, sir," said the head of the army. There was a huge, gigantic horse, the fiercest-looking battle horse you have ever seen. "What? Me? Ride that?" "Yes, sir. This is a horse for the leader of the army." Well, Tommy had to climb onto the back of that thing, and as soon as he was sitting on it, it leapt off. He could hardly keep hold of it. The army marched behind him, and they were off to fight the rebels. Tommy had no control whatsoever over his horse, and it galloped and galloped far away in front of the whole army. Tommy was terrified. He was almost screaming, but he thought that might be a little bit undignified for the son-in-law of a king. But his face was a face of abject terror as he hung on for dear life, and his horse galloped hell for leather towards the army of rebels. The army of rebels formed itself into a line, ready for battle, and they looked up the hill and saw Tommy the tailor charging down on his battle horse, his face a face of agony as he was terrified and scared he was going to fall off. The leader of the rebel army looked up and said, "Bless me, that's Tommy the tailor." And his second said, "Oh, he's the one that killed 2 giants." And another one said, "He killed 50 at one blow." And another one said, "Look at his face. He's so fearsome. We don't stand a chance against Tommy the tailor." And just like that, the army broke up, disappeared, and every single man in the rebel army ran home, terrified of Tommy the tailor. Well, imagine Tommy's relief when the army disappeared and he had no one to fight. Imagine Tommy's relief when he went back to the castle and was treated like a hero for defeating the rebel army. Tommy the tailor lived a very happy life from then on, and indeed he became the king when the old king died, which only goes to show that even if you start off your life as a tailor, you can one day become a king. And that is the story of Tommy the tailor. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And when you come back to Wizard Grandpa Stories, bring all your friends with you. Stick. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.